here at Barn College, and I have the opportunity to teach under the 112 this semester. It's called Critical Conversation. I've been told that I have an accent, so just let me know if you don't understand a certain word or need me to repeat anything. I was born and raised in the Philippines. This semester, I also have the opportunity to have
Olivia Van Horn in her class. I am a pre-medical biology major with an honors in minor research. I am a first-year student, but academically a junior. And our presentation is entitled Dictatorship or Democracy: The Power of Grand Strategy and Civil Resistance. So this slide shows you more of an overview and a table of contents of what our presentation will be about.
Alright, so does anybody have an idea of what or who we'll be talking about today? No? Okay, so we have some description here that might give you a hint. The president publicly called the media fake news while threatening to shut down outlets that didn't toe the line.
Campaign slogans focused on making the nation great again or restoring order.
Signature styles included legendary hair, infamous shoe collections, and a fondness for televised rants.
Supporters were fiercely loyal, while critics kept trending hashtags and filling the streets with creative signs.
Declaring a war on drugs, crime, or even bad press became a favorite grand strategy, sometimes all at once. Does anybody have an idea who or what we're talking about? Yeah. Marcos?
In Philippines.
Okay.
Ferdinand Marcos, right? Or Melvin, one of the other.
Okay. So is it this country? Does everybody know what archipelago this is?
Yes.
It's the Philippines. Is it this country? What about this one? Does everybody know which archipelago this is? Okay, well, in reality, we'll be talking about this one, which is everybody. So when we talk about the struggle for fundamental rights, the line between dictatorship and democracy isn't just about who's in charge. It's about how people live, how they speak, and whether they truly are free. This isn't a debate limited to the Philippines or the United States or any single country. The same patterns of hope, resistance, and sometimes heartbreak play out everywhere people have tried to stand up to oppression, from U.S. civil rights movement to the People Power movement in Manila, from the Solidarity movement in Poland to recent calls to abolish ICE in America. I want to organize this presentation by drawing out these parallels using the frameworks of Gene Sharp, Maria Ressa, and Jovanovic, which offers a lens for understanding why resistance matter, why negotiation can be a trap, and how real change, lasting, meaningful change, depends on more than just a protest in the streets. So to divide two ways of life, which is dictatorship and democracy, real power in democracy doesn't rest with rulers or institutions. It rests with the people. Sharp argues that the strength of a democratic society comes from its collective refusal to obey unjust authority. Not just authority, but an unjust one. History shows us that when these principles are attacked, it isn't negotiation that brings out genuine change, it's organized resistance. Oppressive regimes often call for negotiation as a way to buy time, split the opposition, or force compromises that erode essential rights. Sharp calls this a dangerous trap. Even certain bold movements have been weakened by it.
Dr. Gene Sharp is quoted saying, "Dictators are never as strong as they tell you they are, and people are never as weak as they think they are."
Let's start with how Gene Sharp tells us how to face dictatorship realistically. What does he mean by that? He insists we strip away the myth that dictatorships are invincible, that they're not. In reality, they're vulnerable because they run on the obedience and fear of the people. people. When enough people refuse to cooperate, that's when things start to shift. He points out that every dictatorship has weaknesses. These regimes are often riddled with corruption, internal rivalries, and the huge cost of constant repression. Ordinary people, I don't think anybody's ordinary, but I'm just using that term. Ordinary people, once they realize this, can find real leverage in even small acts of organized resistance. The people of the Philippines in the 1989 during the People Power Movement revolution forced out a dictator not with weapons, but with millions of voices and bodies in the streets. Tunisia's Jasmine Revolution and Egypt's early Arab Spring all drew from this approach nonviolent action, strategic planning, and mass participation. So, what do we notice when we look at these countries? Overthrowing a dictator is just the beginning. Real freedom isn't just about removing a leader, it's about people actively shaping their society every day. Actual freedom and liberation isn't just about removing a tyrant or holding a single election. True liberation is when people have real power over their lives. The freedom to speak out, to organize, to demand change, and to expect justice. As Maria Ressa says, freedom is knowing you can speak the truth and not be punished for it. That's the core of living a democracy.
Sharp warns and history proves that voting alone does not make a country democratic. Dictatorships like Saddam Hussein's Iraq or modern-day Russia hold elections, but it's an illusion. The outcomes are fixed, and the process is just for show. Real democracy is about genuine choice, not a ritual with pre-written script. The lesson from Sharp and from history is clear. Democracy lives or dies not in the ballot box, but in whether people can hold their rulers accountable, and whether they continue showing up even when things get hard in that democracy.
Maria Ressa is a known journalist from the Philippines. She is a Filipino-American journalist who won a Nobel Peace Prize. Her story shows what it looks like when telling the truth is risky. In the Philippines, she and her team, Outrappler, which is a company that she founded, were harassed, arrested, and threatened just for reporting what was actually going on during the drug war, and that was done by the government. We've seen journalists pushed out or silenced in places like the United States as well. Think about Don Lemon, or when Jimmy Fallon was pressured to avoid certain topics. When those who ask tough questions are punished or shut down, it's a warning sign. When the press is silenced, it's a form of dictatorship, even if it doesn't look like one at first. Without reporters shining a light on abuses or asking hard questions, those in power can do whatever they want. Human rights violations, corruptions, extrajudicial killing, all of it gets swept under the rug, and that's a huge threat to democracy. If people can't get the facts, they can't make real choices or hold leaders accountable. The ability to speak up and know the truth is the core of any free society. When that's gone, democracy starts to crumble. So we're gonna move on to the Greensboro Massacre. The fight for rights doesn't end when the protests stop or when a dictator falls. The real test comes afterward as well, when communities have to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move forward, to heal from it. Real democracy means not only having a voice, but working together to repair what's been damaged. That's how lasting change actually happens.
We often think of resistance as the movement that changes everything, but what happens after that moment is just as important. Because removing authoritarian pressure does not automatically rebuild the trust that there once was. And without trust, even a democracy can begin to fracture. If nonviolent resistance can dismantle authoritarian power, what happens next? The three main pillars for what happens after resistance is that it shifts the power, trust does not return automatically, and your democracy can still fracture after resistance. The deeper issue in the Greensboro Massacre wasn't just the violence, it was what the community would decide, the silence or the truth. This massacre exposed violent extremism, and institutions did not immediately deliver justice. And without public truth, democracy becomes fragile. The Greensboro Truth and Reconciliation Commission is important because it wasn't government-led. The community took action to confront what happened and why. That's why Jovanovic shows when institutions fall, democracy depends on people stepping in to create structures for truth and accountability. Jovanovic's key insight is that democracy does not sustain itself. It requires active participation, especially when institutions fall short. In Greensboro, the failure wasn't only the violence, but it was also the lack of immediate accountability. What emerged was something different, a community-driven effort to create space for the truth, dialogue, and responsibility. Resistance alone is not enough. Without strategy and a plan for after, resistance could have no meaning.
There are three main types of actions: protest and persuasion, like rallies or speeches; non-cooperation, refusing to work, buy, or obey; and intervention, direct actions that disrupt the status quo. Let's check in with ourselves just for a little bit. Raise your hand if you've ever boycotted a company. Now keep your hand up if you stuck with the boycott long term. Most of us eventually give in. Maybe it was just more convenient, or we forgot why we started. That's what happens when there's no clear shared strategy. The initial excitement fades and the movement loses momentum. But when we look at international crises like what's happening in Gaza, the big question is whether outside interventions are actually helping the people, or is it just shifting power? If real civil resistance isn't coming from within, true freedom and change it could be hard to reach. So I think the lesson is that tactics matter, but strategy matters more. Without a clear vision and a plan, even the strongest movements can disappear. Gene Sharps demonstrates what it looks like when regular people use their power. The People Power movement and U.S. civil rights movements involve religious leaders, labor unions, activists, students, and everyday folks joining forces.
These movements show us what's possible when people come together. The power really does belong to the people when they know how to use it. Just this last September, we witnessed a youth uprising in Nepal, where mainly Gen Z protesters triggered a government upheaval, resulting in the resignation of Prime Minister K.P. Oile's government.
Part of the strategic plan is asking hard questions. What's our goal? What steps get us there, and how do we keep people involved even when things get tough? We've seen powerful protests around issues like ICE, DEI movements on campuses and workplaces, and huge outcries over the wars in Gaza and Iran. People are speaking out, marching, and demanding change, but without a plan that connects all that energy, it's easy for things to fizzle out or for the movement to lose their way. We have to make resistance more than just a one-time event, build networks, set clear goals, train new leaders, and use tactics that fit the moment. It's about knowing when to protest, when to boycott, and how to keep pushing even when mainstream media moves on.
It's not just about being loud. You have to be smart, persistent, and united. This is how movements turn into actionable results.
So we're going to talk about a little bit about decolonizing the mind. Political defiance isn't just about standing up to dictators. It's also about challenging the ways we've been thought to think about power. The fight for democracy is a fight against the old idea that profit and power matter more than people. That mindset comes from colonialism, but it's also woven into a lot of our current systems. Decolonization in this sense means questioning those old beliefs and calling out unfairness and biases, whether they come from colonial history, capitalism, or just the way things have always been. It's about asking who really benefits from the way things are and who gets left out. I think it's something important, even necessary, to criticize your own country. That's not about disloyalty or lack of patriotism. It's about wanting things to be better. We hold the people we love the most to a higher standard. We give them honest feedback because we care. Criticism can be an act of love, tough love. Honest reflection and even hard conversations are how we help the people and places we care about grow stronger and more just for everyone.
In our aforementioned Honors 112 Critical Conversations class, we discuss on how criticism can be utilized. I've also seen in this class how criticism can be taken personally and taken as a direct threat to what you believe in. In a country so divided, we have to find common ground and open a line of communication and criticism to see the continued success of our country. If we want to break down a dictatorship, we need more than just passion. Grand strategy is the vision. For us, that's democracy and human rights for everyone. Strategy is how we get there. This means setting clear objectives like mobilizing our communities. Techniques are the tools we use along the way. That's where things like strikes, boycotts, public vigils, sit-ins, and creative protests come in. When all three work together, movements don't just survive, they become sustainable. It's not easy and it does not happen overnight, but with a vision, a plan, and the right tools, transformation is possible.
So here's something I've come to realize, that no matter how far a conflict seems, it always finds a way to reach us. You might think that's happening over there and it's not my problem, but the world is more connected than ever. What happens in one place ripples down to everyone. Maybe it's higher gas prices this week, or maybe it's the cost of grocery, or the safety of your community, or just the way you see the world changing around you. I think it's important to ask yourself, why does it have to land on your doorstep before you care? Why is it so hard to see things from someone else's point of view, even when their struggles are tied to yours as a human being in ways you might not notice right away? I think that real change starts with people who care before it's personal to them. People who pay attention, step up, and look out for others. If we wait until we're directly affected, we're already too late. So I guess I'm posing the question of, like, what is your role? Will you wait for the world's problem to knock at your door, or will you help fix what's broken now? Or for everyone, if we open our eyes and work together, we can make things better long before the crisis comes calling.
What Greensboro shows us is that democracy does not collapse overnight. It erodes when people stop engaging. It survives when people choose truth and dialogue and accountability. So your role isn't just to care, it is to participate. Because democracy does not sustain itself. It depends on the people to sustain it, and that is you.
All right, thank you. Olivia, do you want to talk about it?
Yes. So this handout is a QR code with a
and you don't have to say it if you don't want to.
with a link to a comprehensive boycott list that for the current boycotts around the world, and it discusses why these companies are being boycotted and the function of what these boycotts are doing to help our message move on.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Are there any questions that you may have for either of these beautiful young ladies?
Yes.
Yes.
You understand, I hope, democracy is dangerous. Democracy is majority. This is why our founders made this a republic. We knew democracy was dangerous. Democracy is in patterns kill themselves. And there's a republic that's based on law. And so, well, my question would be, you understand that democracy is a very dangerous thing. It can lead to totalitarianism.
I think when we use when, or at least for me, when I use the term democracy, I was talking about a democratic republic, as colloquially we call it a democracy in the United States.
Okay. I understand.
What's the perfect government then? Benevolent dictator? How do you have a perfect government if that's such a dangerous mechanism? I mean, our founding fathers were tired of having tyrants rule over them, and they essentially became tyrants. We're at a time now where social media has changed the power conundrum, but we still have the problem of two sides not being able to communicate with each other so that it can find common ground. So what do you think the good government should be if they should be aware that democracy is so dangerous?
You asking me?
I was just curious because you said you hope they're aware democracy is dangerous, and I really reacted to that comment.
Yeah.
So we should be doing what? If democracies or democratic governments are dangerous, is there a better option?
Make sure the government, our government follows the Constitution the way it's supposed to, and then leaves us alone.
Right.
That was the intent of the founders.
Right.
And what
But
government do we need?
But isn't this the age-old battle that we're in our country? The battle between large and small government, the battle between leave me alone and let me do mine and make my money, but let me do whatever I want, but don't you step on me? I mean, isn't that kind of where things unravel a little bit? I mean, it seems like populism that has driven the world's governments over the last 10 years have done nothing but make totalitarian governments. So I don't disagree with your statement, but I would propose that democracy is really, really a poor way of running a government, and we've not found any other system that's anywhere close as good.
Constitution. We've lost sight of the Constitution in the meantime, the founders, we need to get it back.
Well, but isn't that what our country has battled about, the Federalists and the, I mean, you're right, but I mean, how do you do that? If people just tell us to get the Constitution back, there was a Greek man whose name escapes me. He was the person in charge of 2010, negotiating with, back then, the Euro, when Greece was going through its insolvency. And he does a TED Talk, and his TED Talk is a lot of what they're saying, except none of that will work if you can't speak your opponent's language. If I go to Irene and say, Irene, you're wrong because democracy and democratic governments are dangerous, or I say, I hope you'll understand that there's a constitution that we need to find our track back on, and then we can fight about what that means, but we need to follow that. That seems like language that's less threatening than, don't you know that democracy is dangerous? And I guess that's my point. I'm not attacking you at all. Americans have disagreed since we found our country, but we all agree we want peace, and we want a chance to make money, and we want a chance to live. We just haven't figured out how.
I want to kind of go off what was being said. I feel like, in a sense, yes, we want to follow the Constitution, but the founders said the Constitution is something that is ended by the people for the people. The Constitution is not a fixed piece of paper. Ours been able to put in these amendments in place so it can be fixed and changed as our country grew and changed. So saying it can be fixed by the Constitution, yes. The Constitution can only be changed democratically by the people for the people. Changes can be made to help the people. Such changes to the Constitution have been like the laws we have now and the equality we have now.
I want to thank everyone for coming today, Justin Washington, as well as for Irene Costello and Olivia Van Horn. Please give them both, all three.